This video is unofficially sponsored by my E6 subscription, because, you know, how else am I going to start these videos? Hello everyone, thanks for giving this video a chance to enthrall you. Now, going back a few years, and I guess this was when I switched from film to digital, my most used lens was a 24mm prime. This wasn't just any 24mm prime, however. No, it was the Canon 24mm tilt shift. First the Mark I and then the Mark II version. Ideal for architecture, but fantastic for landscapes too, as it allowed me to get front to back sharpness at f5.6 instead of f16 or having to focus stack, simply by using the tilt function to alter the plane of focus. Back then, 24mm was how I captured the world, how I captured landscapes, the wide view. I could shoot all day with just that one lens and all my landscapes would be perfectly framed. Now, I also had a full set of zooms, but I never really enjoyed the experience of using a zoom lens. Too many choices, which I think hindered my photography. Now, fast forward a few years, and when I downsized to Olympus, my view of the world changed, and I was after tighter views. Less take it all in, and instead, what's within the view. Therefore, 35mm became my new default. That became my ideal and matched how I viewed the world. My vision was the 35mm focal length. Until now. You see, most of the time I carry just two lenses, 35mm and 50mm, and I swap between those two focal lengths for 90% of my images. However, what if I only want to take one lens? Which one do I take? Well, split the difference, and I guess 40mm would now be my ideal. So is this now the time to change again and go slightly tighter once again with my default field of view? So my Ricoh GR3X has a 40mm equivalent lens. The Polaroid SX70 I recently bought is also about 40mm. My Olympus 35RC film camera is 40mm. And the Yashica Mat 124G, the square format film camera I bought, has an 80mm lens, which is, well, it's nearer to 50mm really, but I wish it was 40mm too. So as well as those, I've now actually added two new 40mm lenses to my kit. When my 35mm Nikon lens had to go in for a service, I asked the good people at Flaghead Photographic if I could borrow the Voigtlander 40mm to test instead, a 40mm lens for my Nikon FM2. This is a beautiful looking lens, very old school styling, which I love, and unlike some of the other Voigtlanders, it's not pancake size, and therefore sits nicely in the hand and balances perfectly on my Nikon FM2. So if you're wondering how this particular lens performs, is it sharp? What aperture does it perform best at? Is it soft in the corners wide open? Or how's the bokeh? Well, if you want the answers to those questions, then you're watching the wrong channel. Have I photographed a wall to test the pin cushion in this lens? And have I set up some lens charts to see how many lines it can render? No, of course I haven't. There's more to choosing an ideal lens than that. To me, it's like any other lens, sharper in the centre than the corners, but if you're pixel peeping to notice any of that, then we can't be friends anyway. So what I did do to test it is just go out and use it, and I made a few videos with this lens which you can watch as part of my E6 subscription. But for you here on YouTube, here are some of the results from one of those from a trip to Shoreditch in London. So the lens was only on loan and had to go back after a couple of weeks, but I did end up buying my own copy. So that is hopefully enough of a conclusion and recommendation as to whether this lens is good enough or not. If you want a Voigtlander lens in the Nikon F mount, a 40mm lens, then yes, I do recommend this one. It retails for about £500, but if you fancy getting your own copy, then there is a discount code in the description for you to use. And here are a few more examples of this lens from a shoot photographing Drax Power Station. So that's film, but what about digital? Well, apart from the Ricoh, I don't have a 40mm lens for my Fuji cameras. You may remember last year I did try another Voigtlander lens. Another great lens, but a manual focus one. And I didn't really get on with the manual focusing with the X-T5. And I'm not keen on the ultra small pancake sized lenses either. So after rejecting that one, there isn't that many other choices. Yeah, Fuji do make one, but it's pricey. It's another pancake style of lens with noisy autofocusing apparently, but it is an autofocus lens. So I'm stuck for a decent 40mm autofocus lens in Fuji mount to complete this field of view across the board then. Well, that was until TTArtisan got in touch and reminded me that they now make a 40mm lens, an AF version in Fuji X mount. So for clarity, they offered to send me one to try, and if I make a video featuring it, I can keep it. One of the perks of YouTube, of course, and great if the kit on offer fits your own wants and needs, which isn't always that often. So do I now finally have a perfect 40mm lens for all my cameras? Can I see the foreseeable future shooting at just one focal length? Is 40mm my new 35mm or even my new 24mm? Well, having used this lens for a few weeks now, I can tell you the answer is, well, let's take a look at some of the results first. Here's a few captures from a project shooting the harvest in my local area. Oh, and you can see more of those images and read about the whole project in an e-guide PDF that is again part of my e6 subscription. So once again, if you've come looking for a tech review of this lens, you've come to the wrong channel. There are other channels out there who have done full reviews on this lens and do that better than me. But do remember, this lens retails for just £160, so it's a bit of a bargain. The Fuji version is £399, if you can find one in stock. But that said, it did surprise me with how sharp across the board it actually is. It has some vignetting wide open, which you can either keep or get rid of. I often add some vignetting in my results, so that doesn't really bother me. The only issue with that is that you view your lens when you shoot at its widest aperture, and so that heavy vignetting is visible, especially if you have a contrasty film simulation or JPEG option selected. Now, I only view my images at 67% zoom maximum on screen, so the results look sharp enough to me. They pass my own tests. If you're looking at a lens that costs just £160 at 100% zoom and pixel peeping and don't like what you see, don't buy it. But I would also rethink your photography as a whole if that's your main concern. Anyway, here's a few more image results with this lens from another recent shoot in central London. So my only real fault with this lens is that it's not weather sealed. It is small, almost pancake size, but not too small, and I like that. The lens does flare when shooting into the light, but again, I'm not after sun stars in my pictures. And if you are, sorry, again, for that reason, we can't be friends. Therefore, I'm not after a perfect lens, just a good one that will allow me to take my photography where I want it to go. So bottom line is I enjoyed this lens, and more than the Voigtlander manual focus one for the Fuji that I tried last year. The quality matches my Fuji f2 lenses, and although the autofocus isn't quite as quick, it isn't bad. So this one I can keep, and therefore I will use it. And if it wasn't given to me, I would buy one myself. I think it will pair nicely actually with my Fuji X Pro 2. The optical viewfinder on this camera means you aren't viewing the vignetting when you compose. And for a simple setup, shooting with one camera, with one lens, one focal length, mainly shooting with one aperture, f8, in aperture priority mode, it's the simple setup I've been after in digital. It allows me to take my camera out and just make compositions. That is the 40mm focal length to me. That's what I'm after. Now I'm just looking forward to seeing what I can capture with that. I'll see you next time.